What's going on, guys? Coach Joe here at the Lions Den, and I promised you guys that I would make a series on how to start a gym business. So this is going to be part one of 3-part series where I dive into my journey, the basics you're going to need to know, and then just kind of how to get you rocking and rolling. So this first part is going to be dedicated to my background and my story, which I think really helps understand how it's all going to come together. If you guys know my background, then you can skip this and wait for part 2, which will come out in a couple days. But if not, just sit down, get a pen, paper, start taking notes, going through everything that I'm saying. And this can apply to any dream that you have. But I really want to help as many people as possible. So hopefully through my experiences and my journey, I can help you. So let's get to it. So the background story on myself is that when I grew up, I was actually chubby. I was not what you see right now. I was like the gay best friend to every single girl. I was huge into playing video games. At the time, I was doing martial arts. So I actually do have a black belt in karate, and that was kind of what taught me a lot of discipline and hard work. I fell into working out because I wanted to change my physical appearance and I wanted to boost my confidence, and I did just that. I remember I would do sit-ups in a shower, so my parents would know. And at the time, there's a band called Senses Fail that came out, and I bought that CD, and I would go into my room, I would put it into a CD player, and I would do push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, squats, you name it. A lot of that stuff I couldn't even actually do, so I had to do so many reps until I could do that with my own body weight. But progressively, I ended up losing a lot of weight, building some muscle, boosting my confidence, and that actually got me more attention because it was kind of like a mini transformation kind of going around my middle school years. I was an okay student, and I wasn't ever like a standout athlete. I was always a bigger kid, like always taller, like the tallest in the class. But what I did is I took my discipline and my hard work, and my best friend at the time had told me to try lacrosse. And I was like, okay, whatever. I ended up sucking at it, but it was something I really enjoyed. So I put a lot of hard work and time and dedication, and I ended up getting pretty good. I did the same thing with football, where I was a 4-year starter for lacrosse in high school. And then the same thing with football. I was starting as, a sophomore at the time, and I became the captain of both the lacrosse and the football team. And throughout this, I went from being like a C average student to a A- average student, taking honors classes and just kind of really putting that discipline to work and getting better. So I wasn't gifted with these unnatural abilities of strength or intelligence. It's something I had to work for really hard, which just shows you that if I can do it, you can too. During that whole time span, when I was about 14 or 15, I actually was playing for the state lacrosse team, and I during practice had a little episode where I passed out on the field, and then I got heat stroke, where then they actually found that I had this heart condition called long QT syndrome, but I was kind of borderline with it, so they treated it like full-blown long QT. Bottom line is that the doctors told me I would never be able to play sports. They said that I could die. It was very traumatic to me, but that led my parents finding me a personal trainer. Currently, I was going to Planet Fitness, but one of the guys who was selling his gym that was to become the Planet Fitness was a big dude. I mean, he was like, almost 300 pounds of muscle, huge, like ex-CFL, NFL football player, and he kind of took me under his wing, and that's when I had my first personal training, and he really helped me build the base. So I was doing squats, I was doing deadlifts, I was doing kettlebell swings, pull-ups, flipping tires, sledgehammers, all that stuff that people weren't really doing at that time. A lot of people were just stuck in that bodybuilding era, and I was trying to do something a little bit different, but that is what really got me hooked. And then from there, I got a gym membership, and I would just go in every day, either after school or after practice, and just stick my nose down into the dirt and just work hard and try to outwork every single person that I possibly could. So when I graduated high school, I was really into criminal psychology and forensics, and my goal was to be in the FBI and have some sort of job with the government. So I went to a small private school, which was actually smaller than my high school, called Albury College. And I had a lacrosse scholarship that I was going for at that school at the time. So I played the fall season, but quickly into being at that school, which was very small, the education, there was like 10, 15 kids in a class. I realized that I actually wanted something a lot bigger. I wanted to have more opportunities. I wanted to meet more people. And within the first couple months, I feel like it was just too small for me. So I knew at the end of the year, I probably wasn't gonna come back. But during that time that I was there, I was always in the gym. My lacrosse coach would actually get mad at me because I didn't want to do his workouts because I thought that they were too easy and I wasn't getting enough out of them. So I created my own workout plans. But by doing that, a lot of people saw me training. So I was making friends with the upperclassmen, the guys on the football team, people all around campus. And I distinctly remember having one friend who was in one of my classes, and he was a little bit scrawnier, and he would always ask me about building muscle or getting stronger. So I gave him this proposition. I was like, dude, you know, if you pay me like 15 bucks a week, I'll give you like 4 sessions, you know? So I'm training this guy 4 times a week for over 4 hours, and he's giving me 15 bucks a week. Now, 15 bucks in college is Wawa hoagie, you know, case of beer. You are living the life. But ultimately, I started, you know, turning the gears of, man, I could kind of do something with this. So at the end of that year, I ended up not coming back. Got a job at Giant making fruit trays, and I was going to community college in the meantime. And one of family friends gave me this opportunity to help start a private gym business. So for the next 2.5 years, I really got all the ins and outs of how to run a business, how to start something from scratch, which was cool for a business aspect, but I was also training my butt off all different people, you know, whether they were big, they were small, they were athletes, they were older, they were younger, everybody. Some people I absolutely hated and I didn't like, other people I loved, but what that did was it just gave me that general background knowledge, how to work with people, how to run a business, and it was just a great opportunity that I had. Now, during this time, I was dating a girl, and I distinctly remember having a conversation with somebody pretty much saying that her parents aren't ever gonna really truly appreciate you because you can't provide for her with what you do. And that I'll never forget, honestly, till this day. So what I decided to do is actually really wanted to be a provider, is I quit that job and I work full-time for a pool company. So now I go from working, you know, 30 hours a week to like 70 hours a week, where I'm making great money, I'm working my balls off. But the problem with this is even though I was making good money and I was working like crazy and could be a provider, there was always something missing. I always felt like, man, there was something about fitness, or there's something about, you know, the weight training that it was just always calling me. And with that opportunity that I had to make more money, I started setting up a garage gym full of equipment for me to train. So it's just me, and at this point I was getting home at like 7 p.m. at night, so it was pretty late. And when I would get home, I had the garage set up, and this is in my aunt and uncle's garage because I was living with them at the time, was for me to start training myself, and that was it. Over time though, people in the neighborhood started seeing this guy carrying kegs, you know, or Atlas stones. I used to pick up spare tires on the road or chains at a scrapyard. You know, I would make things. It was super minimal and super basic. Barbell, I was getting mats, you know, from Home Depot, like just like little stuff I could make in anything with my overtime cash. But little by little, people started seeing this crazy nut job walking up and down the streets with kegs and stones, and they would say, hey man, like, can I join in? So I remember I'd let people work out with me, and every Sunday I always had a free boot camp. And I was putting out flyers actually at one point, and then like 12 at night, because you weren't allowed to do that, to try to get people in the neighborhood to join. So that was what ultimately became the Grindhouse. And in that was really cool. I mean, those are some of the best years, the best times of my life. You can even ask some of the clients who are still with me today. Nothing will probably ever mimic that experience because it was so raw. It was such a really interesting, cool place. It was hardcore, and you had to be hardcore to work out there. So as time went on, I was getting a lot of clients in this garage, and then I had picked up another job with a gym that was pretty close to the Grindhouse. So I had 2 training jobs, and I was still working for the pool company. Now I kept building and building and building my clientele, my following, which was huge, and I got to the point where to really take myself to the next level, I needed to cross one of those out. So I ended up leaving the pool company, which my boss was the coolest guy ever, and he knew what I was doing the entire time, so there's no hard feelings. And then I just took everything in the garage that I had, all the people, and moved them inside of the gym that I was currently working. So I had my people in there, brought all my equipment in, and I was also training pretty much full-time at that gym. So I was at this new gym, and I was bringing in tons of clients, and I was doing lots of personal training, bringing the gym in a good solid amount of revenue. So this is a great time for me to, you know, do my YouTube videos, build my network, my niche, all that good stuff. But deep down inside, I knew that I was a strength guy. And the gym I was working at was more obstacle racing, boot camps, TRX classes, all that kind of stuff, which is totally cool, but it wasn't where I knew I had to be. So while I was there, I kind of just started brainstorming business ideas in the background of, you know, how could I maybe start my own little facility. And over time, everything just started clicking and falling into place, and I was presented with a great opportunity to do so. Things just kind of lined up. So I put my 2 weeks in, did everything right as a business person or employee should, and when I quit, they were pissed. They talked a lot of trash behind my back, which obviously I hear about it, and it got pretty ugly where I just showed up and all my stuff is outside for me to come pick it up and load it into trucks, and it was just ridiculous. But what I could have done is said a lot of bad things, exposed a lot of people, told their clients what they were really saying about them and hurt a lot of people's feelings, but it would be the truth. Or I could just take my pride, swallow it, know it's all gonna work out and karma is gonna get to them at some point, and that's what I did. So from there, I had a little bit of a stalling point where I was kind of working out of a couple people's garages, keeping the clientele happy. In the meantime, I was building this gym. Now, this gym was my first location, which was a 2,000 square foot facility in retail of a town. So it was right on a main street. The rent was pretty expensive for 2,000 square feet. And I put about 2 to 3 months of hard work into this place, you know, loading the equipment in, getting the huge shipments from Rogue. It was so exciting. I was working the hardest I've ever worked every day, day in and day out, and I made this thing come true. So the gym's all set up, and what I wanted to do prior to opening was get a group of people in there, do a mock workout, and just see how everything ran. Now, the first issue is when I had at least 10 people in there, it actually felt like I didn't have enough space. So I thought that was a problem. But the real problem came when we started doing some deadlifts, right? We're doing some ball slams or heavy odd objects were dropping, and the entire floor started shaking and the walls were shaking out of control, which is not good. And next door to me was a tattoo shop. So whenever people would drop deadlifts, you know, 300 plus pounds, things were falling off the people's walls next door while they're getting tattooed. The floor is shaking, the walls are shaking, and this is not what I expected at all. So the issue with this is that the I-beam was running underneath the floor connecting my neighbor and I. Now anything that was dropped or any vibrations that were felt on the other side as well. So this is a huge problem. And they were not happy at all, and neither was I. I'm about to open, this is like the worst thing that could possibly happen. So I ended up getting some structural engineers in there. Pretty much bottom line, they said, this would be hundreds of thousands of dollars to fix. You're gonna be out of business, it's not gonna work, they're not gonna pay for it. So I had to get out of that lease. Now my landlords were kind enough to give me about a month to find a place and move into, which I thought would be great. However, I ended up not finding a spot in that time. The market was pretty crappy and it was either too big or it was too small and it wasn't in my price range. So then I had to move everything into storage. And the dark years commenced. So ironically enough, I had set up the garage gym again and I started inviting people in, what people I could keep. But the issue was I had such a huge hype. So I had like 65 people ready to sign up. They were super amped. When I left the gym, nobody had enough time to talk trash on me or anything like that. So people were ready to go. But as time went on, right, and now they hear that this gym's closing, the people I work for are now talking trash on me. It took my hype from here and kicked it all the way down to here. Like this was like the ultimate kick in the nuts, so I thought at the time. But it was just a huge morale loss. So I'm trying to make things work and, you know, find a place, look for a location where I can make money. I had some money saved up, but over time that was just diminishing. My bank account was running down to zero. I lost clients. And it was just a really bad time in my life. I was super depressed. I was super unhappy. I'm not gonna lie. You know, it's just, you're thinking crazy things. You wanna give up. You wanna find another job. So fast forward to about November. I would go to the gun range all the time down the street and I would shoot there. And I saw this cool looking garage space. So I inquired about that space and it ended up being available. It was 3,000 square feet, so it was actually bigger. The rent was cheaper because it's a warehouse, which is all stuff we'll talk about in the next video. And it looked like a cool opportunity. Now this place looked definitely a lot, how do I say it, more dungeon-y like a true, like almost like a CrossFit box look, where it was just in a warehouse. There wasn't any bathrooms, so I was gonna have to add bathrooms and, you know, do a lot of work to it. But I thought it would be a great starting spot. So I ended up signing a lease there, and over time I moved all my equipment back into this garage. So as time went on in this location, I was getting ready to open up again, right? But my landlord started acting kind of weird. And he kept saying that the township was delaying, the township. However, when I go to the township, they would say that he was delaying. So someone here was either lying or miscommunicating with me, which ultimately led to me calling and saying, yo, I'm showing up at your office and we're gonna figure out what's going on right now. So this was about a 2-month period. When I got there, he ultimately said that he wanted to open up his business next door. So he was in the automotive business. There was space available next to me. He wanted to open up a business there. Now the problem was with the parking lot and the parking availability, he couldn't have my business and his business at the same time. The township wouldn't allow it, and it was gonna cost him 50 some grand to build a parking lot to make it happen. Now, I understand, right? He's trying to do his thing, I'm trying to do mine and whatever, but at the same time, it didn't need to take 2 months for me to figure this out. So that is the second kick in the nuts, and that was really the worst one ever. At that point, I was hopeless. You know, I'm sitting there thinking, is this really gonna work? Am I gonna be able to make this happen? I have no money, you know, I have no support, I have barely any clients. I think I had like less than 10 people at the time who were still with me. So going from 60 to 10, that's not good. So I had to close up shop and move everything out of there. Now in this whole interim, I was trying to look for locations, but it just wasn't happening, you know? And this time frame was from when I closed the first gym, October, all the way until after my birthday, so a little bit after February. So now it's about February, and I decided to take this one last look with a realtor, drive around properties, and part of that I talked to my best friend, and he was really giving me a heart-to-heart. And I was thinking about quitting. Honestly, I was thinking about like, yo, I can get a good corporate job, I can work my way up, I can make good money, I'm going back to that provider mentality. And he's like, dude, he said, if you give up on this dream, that is when you're actually a failure. That's when you failed. He's like, you can't not do this. Like, you were destined to do this. You have to see it through. And he said, you know, you're gonna go and see some properties, and how weird is this? And this is what he said, I swear to God, he's like, he's gonna show you the last one and that's gonna be it. I have the feeling that's gonna be the one. And I was like, yeah, whatever. I didn't really believe him, but I was like, okay. So anyways, go watch these properties. None of them worked, right? And we're driving back. And he gets on the phone, he's like, listen, he's like, I got one more that I can show you that I think's really gonna work, but you're gonna have to come back at 5:30. And this is like 1 in the afternoon. So I was like, wasn't really feeling it, but I did it anyway. Lo and behold, we walk into this place, it's 5,000 square feet. It's divided into 2 sides with a big opening to go in between them. And that is where I am today. So I don't know, you know, everything happens for a reason, and this was meant to happen, but it did. And it's a pretty wild story. But throughout this 1.5 year long journey of trying to open up the gym, I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about other people, my friends, my family, you know, who's actually there for me, who's not. I learned how to run a business, fail a business, try to make it work, not make it work. I learned so many things that I would have never have come out stronger if this never happened. And I don't think anything in life without conflict, you know, has ever led to anything amazing, right? There's always some sort of conflict. Every movie you've ever watched or every story you've ever heard, there's always conflict. So it's hard to realize that during the time. And then, you know, I went through crazy depression. I went through horrible, you know, situations and loss of money, friends, and, you know, other things. But ultimately, it taught me so much, and it's been an amazing opportunity. And that's why I want to share this with you guys, is to help people, you know, inspire you guys, or show you that if I can push through it and do it, you can too. The reason why I started a gym was to create an amazing community of people who are willing to work hard, and I could show them how capable they really were of achieving things in their life. Now, I just do that through strength training, but I think what I do has such a bigger purpose than just strength training. And it was also a way for me to help people build confidence in themselves. I knew what it was like to be insecure and not get the girls, or be unhappy with the way I looked. And strength training and fitness had done that for me. It was also an outlet for me when I was down or depressed, to get myself out of that depression, get myself out of thinking dark, horrible thoughts. It really was just my medicine. So if that was my impact of strength training, I knew that it could help other people out there. And that's why I built, you know, the Grindhouse. That's why I have the Lions Den, is to help influence, inspire, create, motivate, and just change the the world and spread my message to as many people as possible. This is pretty much just the journey of me building my legacy, trying to leave my legacy and help others do the same thing. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that story. If you didn't, sorry, part 2 is coming out, and part 2 is going to be way more about the business end of things, where we talk about, you know, your story. So that's why I told you this, is how can you use your story to influence people or to market or to get people in. We talk about your niche market. We're going to talk about business layouts and, you know, all sorts of different business things in the next video. So hopefully you guys learn more about me, my story, took a little tip off of this, and then the next video is when we're going to dive deep into how I built the following, the social media, all of that. Get ready.